Today, we're diving into a hard truth that society really doesn't like to talk about. We're going to unpack why the heavily romanticized idea of remarrying in your 60s might actually be blinding senior men to some pretty harsh, practical, legal, and emotional realities. We're constantly sold this beautiful, cinematic vision of finding love again later in life. But beneath that glossy surface, there is a fascinating story of expectations versus reality. The insights we're about to go through are genuinely eye-opening, and they might just completely change how you view companionship and independence in your later years. So, let's jump right in.
I want to start right here, with a thought that really sets the stage. Just imagine this for a second. The storm finally settles. The pressure that sat on the chest of a young man begins to fade into something much quieter and much more manageable. Think about the sheer weight of that statement. For decades, it's just been a constant grind, right? Waking up long before the sun, navigating the relentless stress of climbing a corporate ladder, keeping a business afloat, raising kids, paying off mortgages, and meeting the incredibly heavy expectations of everyone around you. And then, finally, a man earns a profound sense of peace. The storm actually settles. For the first time in maybe 40 years, he gets to wake up, pour a cup of coffee, and ask what he genuinely wants to do with his day, without answering to anybody. It's arguably one of life's greatest, most hard-earned gifts. But right at this moment of absolute freedom, a spark of new romance often appears, completely redirecting the whole shebang.
And that brings us to Section 1, the myth of safe romance. Society's applause versus the hard questions.
You see, when a new romance sparks later in life, the world enthusiastically pushes for a wedding. Friends smile and encourage it, family cheers, and literally every romantic comedy celebrates it as the ultimate happy ending. But nobody stops to ask the absolutely crucial question, is getting married at 65 truly the same thing it was at 30? The unspoken assumption is that the marital promise that felt like a necessary safety net in your youth, back when you were building a life from scratch, won't suddenly feel like a heavy, restrictive chain later in life. At 30, you're looking for a co-founder for your life. At 65, your life is already deeply established. That's silence from society. That total lack of questioning the underlying mechanics of a late-in-life marriage, well, it ends up costing many men far more than they ever bargained for.
Which leads right into Section 2, legal contracts versus love. What actually happens to a lifetime of building?
Look, when love is in the air, nobody wants to talk about paperwork. It feels cold, it feels unromantic. But we really have to snap out of this romantic myth for a second. Marriage isn't just about love and companionship. It's a legally binding financial contract that fundamentally rewrites the rules on everything a person owns. By the time a man reaches his 60s or 70s, he's accumulated something real and meaningful through decades of strict discipline. We are talking about a lifetime of saving, investing, and careful planning. When that marriage certificate is signed, it doesn't just symbolize affection. The legal standing on all of that accumulated wealth instantly changes, bringing on a whole new set of sudden vulnerabilities.
We're talking about highly vulnerable assets here. Imagine the family house you finally paid off after 30 years of grueling mortgage payments. The retirement accounts fed carefully out of every single paycheck. The long-term pensions, and deeply personal things like the inheritance you painstakingly set aside for your daughter or son. Signing that certificate tangles up all these hard-earned assets with another person. Financial planners and family lawyers see this literally all the time. A man walks in seeking companionship, usually driven by a fear of growing old alone. But if things go wrong, and statistically, second and third marriages have very high failure rates, he walks out totally shocked by the enormous amounts of money and the grueling years of litigation required to untangle this massive legal web, a web he willingly, yet unknowingly spun around his own life's work.
So the money aspect is just the beginning. Let's look at Section 3, the loss of quiet freedom and the daily renegotiation of life.
This is a deeply human reality that gets so easily swept under the rug. We aren't talking about dramatic, cinematic freedom here, like, sailing a yacht around the world. We're talking about the simple, profound, quiet freedom of an untethered Tuesday morning. The freedom to drive somewhere new on a whim, eat what you want when you want it, or simply keep your home exactly how you like it. When two people have spent 60 years developing their own distinct, let's be honest, often stubborn habits and routines, moving in together turns that quiet freedom into a daily renegotiation. Suddenly, the temperature of the thermostat, how the dishwasher is loaded, how holidays are divided, or even when the TV gets turned off becomes a point of negotiation or tension. It's just a simple fact. Two fully formed, decades-old lives do not always fit together neatly. You are merging two established empires, not building a brand new one from the ground up.
And this brilliantly illustrates why a marriage at this age is never just a private decision between two people. Welcome to Section 4, Complicating the Family Dynamic, the invisible ripples of a late-in-life wedding.
The ripple effect of a late marriage is massive. Step 1 is the couple's private choice. It starts with just two people deciding to tie the knot. But Step 2 quickly follows, bringing adult children's anxiety into the mix. Even if those kids desperately want their dad to be happy, a new legal partner introduces sudden, often unspoken anxieties about inheritances, estate control, and a really profound fear of emotional displacement. Holiday gatherings that used to be super relaxed suddenly feel a bit more cautious. Then comes Step 3. Two entire family networks colliding. You've got two different sets of adult children, grandkids, in-laws, and decades of inside jokes and family politics suddenly shoved into one room. The man often finds himself right smack in the middle, feeling the intense pressure to bridge this massive gap and manage everyone's feelings while just trying to keep his new marriage afloat.
Next, we absolutely have to talk about a physical dimension that fundamentally alters the retirement dream. Section 5, Unpredictable Health Realities, and the Unspoken Caregiving Burden.
The contrast between marrying young and marrying later in life is incredibly stark. Marriage at 30 means capable bodies and decades to grow as a resilient team. You're biologically primed to face challenges and bounce back. But marriage at 65 or 70, that operates on completely different biological rules. Health becomes incredibly unpredictable. A man who marries imagining golden years filled with shared hobbies, long walks, and European river cruises must honestly prepare for a completely different, very common reality. The high likelihood of spending his days managing someone else's daily medications, attending endless doctor's appointments, and carrying the heavy physical and emotional weight of full-time caregiving. It's a profound responsibility. Taking on a vow of in sickness and in health at an age where sickness is statistically right around the corner requires wide open eyes and a tremendous amount of self-honesty.
Which leads us to our final section. Section 6, Peace Without a Contract, separating the cure for loneliness from the institution of marriage.
Underneath all of this, what a man in his 60s or 70s is genuinely searching for is peace, a calm, gentle morning, companionship. But often, he feels a deep sense of loneliness, and society is constantly whispering in his ear that marriage is the absolute, obvious fix. But we really have to look closely at the actual definitions here. Loneliness is the painful absence of meaningful human connection. Marriage, on the other hand, is a binding legal, financial, and lifestyle contract. They are completely separate things. You absolutely do not need a binding legal contract signed by a judge to cure the feeling of being alone. Conflating the two is exactly how so many seniors end up trapping themselves in complicated legal and emotional webs when, at the end of the day, all they really wanted was someone to share a cup of coffee with. So how do you find that necessary connection without the contract? Well, you have so many incredible options that completely preserve your independence. You can intentionally build deep, lasting friendships with people who share your interests. You can host weekly dinners, or pour your energy and wisdom into quality time with your grandchildren, becoming a real pillar in their lives. You can join active local communities, volunteer for a cause you care about, travel, and pursue personal passions you never had time for during your working years. You can fill that empty space and share your joy abundantly, completely avoiding a new set of heavy legal obligations that might slowly drain away your hard-earned peace.
Because the truth is, the happiest men at this age, they didn't rush out to find someone to complete them. They completed themselves. The source material points out a fascinating trend. The seniors who are most fulfilled take the time to build a life they genuinely love on their own terms first. They find real comfort in their own solitude. And from that remarkably strong, settled place, they might invite someone into their world to share in its joy, perhaps through a long-term relationship or companionship without the paperwork. But they flat out refuse to restructure their entire existence or jeopardize their hard-won assets just to accommodate a fear of being alone.
This leads to a critical moment of reflection. Before making any drastic decisions, before merging households, and certainly before signing any legally binding papers, every man needs to sit in the quiet of the morning, completely alone with his own thoughts, and ask himself this profoundly honest question. Does this relationship make the life I have already built genuinely better? Or am I just hoping it'll magically fix an emptiness inside me that I haven't yet taken the time to fix on my own? It takes a lot of courage to answer that honestly, but that honesty, it's the ultimate protector of your peace.
And I'll leave you with this one final provocative thought to ponder. Does genuine love truly require a legal contract to be meaningful? You can love deeply. You can be a wonderfully generous, dedicated companion. You can share your life, your time, and your heart without ever needing a piece of paper that risks the profound independence and peace you spent an absolute lifetime earning. It's about choosing to be with someone every single day because you genuinely want to, not because a legal contract says you must. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those hard questions, protect your peace, and I'll see you next time.